Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz singer Amy Cervini of the New York City Group Duchess. We talked to her on April 7, 2020 as the spring coronavirus quarantine ramped up. We talked about this new world and their latest 2020 CD live at the Jazz Standard. Duchess is a trio of New York singers that channels the inspiration of vintage vocal trios into a package that's completely up to date, winning hearts far and wide, and they are hard swinging. It was an open and frank discussion. Dig it.
How you doing?
Hey, hanging tough. How you doing?
My best. I'm doing my best.
I think that's all we can expect out of everybody.
I think so too.
Ain't alive. What a crazy world.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So you're right in the middle of Manhattan, correct?
I am, yeah.
So I guess the thing right now is, and this is the thing, I think one of the stressors as we get into like a month into this is this whole tsunami that's supposed to happen and everybody's waiting for it. So what's the real story of what's happening up there now?
So I am not really going outside. We are trying to order in our groceries as much as we can. So I don't really, it's funny, we also don't watch the news. So
yeah, good for you.
I'm not, you know what I mean? Because it's stressful enough just like being stuck in here. So I don't need an added, I don't need to know what's going on outside. I know it sucks. So, okay, that's kind of the baseline, and I don't feel like I need to know details. It's pretty, nighttime is really quiet.
Yeah.
Except for ambulances. That's freaky.
Yeah.
And, it's getting a little bit, the crazy thing is sort of how everyone is so stressed out. So you go outside and, people are looking at each other weird for being outside. And why are you outside?
Yeah.
And, I have kids. They need to go outside every once in a while. Like, we got to get them out. And then people don't move to the side. They're not giving space, and then other people get angry. It's just starting to, and now people are wearing masks. A lot of people are, which is actually, it feels better. It just does.
Yeah, we went to the grocery store this weekend for the first time. My mother-in-law is really crafty, and she made a bunch of masks and ordered vacuum bags on Amazon. And those, she's a nurse, so she knows how this works. So we put it in there. And the one thing I'm doing here in Kansas City, because we're waiting for that, for that surge to happen, is that, I started hearing stories in Kansas City where people were calling each other if they left. And that to me is the apex of Orwellian police state. That's wrong. We don't need to be snitching on each other for getting out of the house to get fresh air. It's ridiculous, And it's there's got to be a point where our human sanity outweighs this pandemic fear, and there's already enough fear in this country without slapping a pandemic on top of it.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. And then there's this line where you're like, okay, so, but what is, you guys are, I imagine, well, anyone here with a car is lucky that you can, get away and go somewhere where there aren't going to be any people. And that's a responsible decision, I think,
Yeah.
But then where's the line? Where do you, if you go up to the woods and you're from New York City and you're carrying this thing and you don't know it, and then you take it to a whole other region by, running into someone in the trail. There's those kinds of, because there's people, the other thing is that people, and no one knows. No one knows. Yeah. So you don't know if, maybe that's cool. And maybe you're already, you already had it. And, the science has been so hindered on this that we just don't know. We don't know. And that also takes time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's so many unknowns. The way this is unfolded, the way every day plays out, the new things. I've noticed new restrictions with going into stores. You can't bring your kids, and you can only go one at a time.
Right.
Everything has evolved to a certain point. But the interesting thing I think of from a jazz perspective, the last two jazz things I did in mid-March, I went and saw Bill Frisell at our art museum, the Nelson here, and he had his group with him, and I can't remember the name of the singer, but she, at the end of the show, stood up and started singing We Shall Overcome, and the whole crowd spontaneously rose up. It was almost like the foreshadowing, the whole crowd just chimed in, and then the very last thing I do, and I knew this was going to be it, there was a community college here. Maxine Gordon's Dexter's wife was on tour for Sophisticated Giant with Deborah Brown, and I got a chance to ask her a question about Dexter, and that was really cool. But I knew that day it was all over with, and it was just going to be when this was all going to return. Now, as far as like the architecture of how this was going to start playing out, there's still no way that we're going to know. But, you know, it was kind of like the Edward Norton film where he had like 48 hours until he was going away. He just did whatever he could do, you know. Right. So, anyway, but anyway, I'm trying to really ramp up what I'm doing as far as my job as a radio host, to really have interviews and to talk to people during this unique time, to kind of have an oasis. And this may be one of the only times in our human history that we're ever going to have this moment to be reflective in the middle of the cauldron. So I'm trying to kind of, you know, look at this as a way of getting some cathartic good out of all of this. So thanks for taking a minute today to talk about this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your live album. It's a great album. It sounds like you guys were having a really, really good time, you, Hillary, and Melissa. So talk to me a little bit about this recording and kind of how you feel about it.
Sure. So we made 2.5 if you include our holiday EP, studio records, and we knew it was time to make another record. Now, the finances of that are kind of insane, just in general, of making a record. So then we started thinking about a way to document our live show, because it really, a lot of stuff has changed since we made those first two records, and the stuff has grown. And when we get to play with our New York band, I mean, it's a different thing from what we recorded, you know. And the other thing we wanted people to be able to experience is our sort of the fun that happens in between the songs. So we decided to do this live record, and we got 2 nights at the Jazz Standard, and we did the same set every time, and we had so much fun, as we usually do. I mean, you know, we could be in horrible moods coming onto the stage. We get on there and everything just kind of disappears, and we just have a blast. So what you get on this record is basically, it's a live show. It's, you know, we did some editing in terms of, not every tune is a full take. We didn't do any fancy pants editing like that, but, you know, maybe something was better one night than the other night. So that stuff is all mixed around, but it's essentially a live Duchess show from beginning to end.
And you guys spend a lot of time traveling now, and I'm sure now that the music has been silenced live, that seems like a million years ago. What was that like to get out in front of other crowds and other cultures and audiences to present this?
It's been amazing. I mean, I think what we found, we've been really lucky, and we've been to, you know, Jerusalem and Copenhagen and Scotland and out on the west coast of the United States, and we've been to Canada, and no matter where we go, there's something just so beautiful about looking out into that audience and seeing people smiling and having people come up to you afterwards and say, wow, I didn't know I needed to, you know, laugh like that, or I didn't know I needed to smile or hear those songs again. And, it reminded me of my grandmother or my mother. And there's something so sort of, we know now more than ever that our world is connected. We can kind of like press a button and probably see video from across the world, you know. But to actually experience how universal, people don't necessarily know what we're saying, but they still are feeling our joy and our love for this music. So it's really special.
So how did you all come together? How did this magic trio union get together, and how did it all kind of start taking off?
Magic trio union. I'm thinking of like picturing a 3-headed unicorn. I love it.
That should be the next album. Get the artwork going. Yeah.
Annette Cohen said our next album should be called Swinging from the Chandeliers.
Oh man!
So we got a running list of of album titles going on.
Well, real quick
Yeah.
aside though, that's the thing that always gets me about art museums. If you had Van Gogh and Gauguin and all those guys hanging out, they would be the most motley group of people. And all these art museums and jazz shows seem so civil, but at the end of the day, that's how it all began. It was all about really just kicking it up and going in there. So
I know,
yeah.
letting loose. That's what it is.
Without a doubt.
So we got together for what was supposed to be a one-time show. I have a residency at the 55 Bar here in New York, and I am fairly restless. I think if you look back at my solo records, you can see that I'm kind of all over the place in terms of the kinds of things I'm trying, and I was looking to do something else. And my husband, who is the fourth member of Duchess, really, his name is Oded Levari. He suggested that I get together with Melissa and Hillary, who I have sung with individually in the past, and try just do some fun, 3-part stuff that we can find, stock arrangements. So we got together a couple times and rehearsed a few things, and went to the 55 Bar. It was packed. The place was like standing room only. We only had enough for one set, and we did it twice, and it was packed for both sets. People stayed. And it was so fun and so easy in terms of vibe and connection. And the audience really loved it. And we thought, listen, there's not a lot of this stuff going on on the scene right now. It's kind of a hole that we can sort of fill up a little bit. There, at least at that point, there weren't that many vocal trios, female vocal trios happening. So that we knew of. So then, at that point, after that first show, 5 months later, we made our first record and had some of these. Oded started doing arrangements for us, so we wouldn't have to be. We didn't want to be a cover band. We didn't want to be a tribute band. We didn't want to get dressed up in the army costumes and be Andrew's sisters. That's not what we were going for. And for that, we needed Oded's voice and his arrangements. So, yeah, and the rest is history.
Right on. So I guess one of my questions, in light of everything that's going on, and when you do get back, I'm sure it's going to be jubilant when you do get back and perform. What are you hoping that both you and your collective as performers get from this time of being away in quarantine, and then even the audience member, maybe their appreciation or revelations about what they think about just coming back into reality and seeing this music that's been silenced, which is very strange. What do you think? What are you hoping happens?
I think that I can only speak for myself. I think Melissa, Hillary, and I are having very different, of course we are. Everyone is having their own experience. Melissa and I both have young children that we're trying to, get homeschooled and deal with that. And I personally have not had much space to be creative. I'm finding myself awfully jealous of these people who are like, I wrote another song and I'm so bored, and so I learned to play this instrument. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys, it's all I can do to get 5 minutes in on something that I want to do. But so everyone is definitely having their unique experience. What I do know is, for me personally, I have this monthly residency still at the 55 Bar. And there are some months that I'm like, oh my God, am I really still doing this? Do I want to do this? Does it make sense for me to be doing a monthly show? And when I didn't get to do it this month, it kind of broke my heart. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really miss, sometimes it's the only way to see these, musicians who have become my family. We don't get to see each other in between shows sometimes, and that's our chance. And we didn't get that, and I didn't get to connect with the audience. I didn't get those moments on stage, which are mine. I'm doing so many things. I'm a mom. I'm a teacher. I'm, just a manager basically for Duchess at this point. So like to have those moments on stage that are mine are pretty special. And I think this has helped me remember that. I think I always knew that, but this is helping me remember that. And I think, for Duchess, we really are it might as well be our motto is that what we want to do is just bring joy to people. And we're just hoping to make people smile and laugh and have a good time. I think we value entertainment as much as we do the seriousness of the music that we make and making it the best it can possibly be. And I really hope that coming out of this, people will really feel that from us and know that that's where we're coming from, that we're just, trying to bring people together through music. And, I hope that people can gain some perspective from this. It's hard though. It's so complicated. There's so much going on a sort of cellular level with anxiety and, so I just hope that people come out of this in one piece.
Yeah.
But I really do hope that people can recognize how the arts have helped them get through this. Netflix is the arts, and having music on in the background is us, and people are asking us as musicians right now to be giving away our music, and I'm like, guys, but we don't have any work right now. Like, you're sitting there at home getting paid because awesome, good for you. You have a job that allows that, but you're asking us to give you this gift for free, but we can't pay our rent. So I'm hoping that somehow through this, if maybe people will realize what it is worth, music, art in general.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there's going to be a lot of revelations that are going to come out of this. But I know the other night my wife and I watched a remote show of Kansas City musicians, and they had their PayPal and Venmo up, and we put some money in, and one of the musicians said that they made just as much, if not a little bit more, doing that than they would have going to the club. But that was just one night. It's obviously not realistic for the future. But maybe what this could do too, I think, and I'm hopeful, and I've heard this from other musicians, is that, I always find it still strange that I get CDs in the mail. Now, I come from a generation where I'm used to it. I put it I like driving around and listening to it. But I remember years ago, I went to my son's school as a career day as a DJ, and I gave them CDs, and at the end, I had all these CDs from promoters, and I would give it out when the kids answered questions about my speech. Well, one of the kids came back like a month later and said, I haven't been able to listen to this CD because I don't have a CD player. And that's the way a lot of these kids are. So my bigger point here is that hopefully this motivates people to get to a point where they start divulging the digital media, because that's been a real barred for the jazz world, is that there just hasn't been enough units that have passed on, because Apple Music and Spotify, unless you get some astronomical amount of hits, is just not going to pay through. I mean, I've seen enough people, musicians, putting up these parody pictures of, oh, thank God I got a check from Spotify and it's for 3 cents, and that's kind of the way it is. So hopefully this will wake people up to a new way. And I think the world of business is going to start understanding that, the digital exchange is totally valid even when the world gets back to work.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And, I think there are some things you can't do. Like, Duchess has not figured out a reliable way to make music together during this time. It's just like we can do little kind of gimmicky things, but there's not a way to do it live that's good at this point. But we did a virtual CD release where we went on Facebook Live, the three of us talking. We listened to some music. We answered people's questions. It was wonderful. It doesn't take the place at this point for a live performance, but it's something different that could sit alongside of that. You know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah. Everyone's going to have their perception of who you all are as a unit performing and what they see on stage and what they get But at the end of the day, who are you all as a trio? And really, at the end of the day, like, how would you describe who you all are when you get together and become who you are as a group?
I think part of the like magic three-headed unicorn thing about Duchess is that we are three fairly different women, and I think on paper the combination probably shouldn't work if you just with lists and algorithms. But there's really something magical about our relationship on stage and off stage. We really have become family. We have this like mind meld thing. Some of the stuff that has happened musically just happened. We didn't sit and talk about, oh, I think we should lay this back and I think we should do. No, it just happened on the stage. It was just something that sort of became reality. And I think what we are is really it's a family. It's a respect and a love and an admiration for each other that I hope is visible to other people. And also this thing about joy. I mean, I think that you could ask any one of us about what we feel on stage with each other, and it really just is joy through music, and I think that's what makes us special, and what we're trying to do special.
Hey, thank you for taking a minute out during this very extraordinary time as the human species on this planet to talk about music and what's going on in New York and just in general. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's great to actually talk about something else rather than, fourth grade math. So
Right, exactly.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Amy for her time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.